We go. What's up, War Report family? I'm your host, Caesar Walker, and the gang is all here. Guys, we got a great show for you today. Man, we talking about the 2022 recruiting class and the updates with that. We're also going to be discussing Tank and his Heisman chances for 2021. Also, there's a list that's going around by ESPN of the top quarterbacks, top 60 to be exact. Cam Newton is actually pretty high up that list. We're going to talk about that as well. Guys, get ready for a great show. Without further ado, let's start the tailgate. Greetings, War Eagle. Get your weight up, all of that good stuff. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Man, listen, smash that like button if you haven't already. Don't be rude. I'm loving the War Eagles already off the jump. Shout us out, man. Comments. Please comment. Let us know where you're from, if you're new. And yeah, man, gentlemen, the brand new week.
It is a brand new week. It is a brand new week.
About to be a brand new month.
Oh, man, we are a few steps closer to spring practice, baby. That's what I'm waiting on.
Almost 2 weeks away, right?
Yeah, let's get these boys back on the field, and let's see what we're going to look like in the fall. Be easy. First live show.
Class of 2020. Glad to see you.
Welcome. So some of our people are filling in. We got a lot to talk about, man. A topic that I'm not sure if we're going to stay too close to. I guess we can kind of fill in around this area. Is we can do kind of an update. We kind of talked about it last live, and that had to do with the kid out of Auburn High actually committing to Auburn. That was Powell Gordon. He's going to be. A lot of his film shows him as playing on the end as a rush end, but he's like 6'3", 215, 210, somewhere in there. And so they're projecting him to finally be, or to actually wind up being a middle or inside linebacker in Derek Mason's defense. So shout out to
Big
new
Gap
member here.
Hey, Big Gap, welcome, man.
Welcome.
Appreciate
welcome,
you
man.
joining the team, baby.
Hey.
This guy just became a member yesterday. Welcome to you.
Arctic Blizzard, man. We appreciate that. I don't need an Arctic Blizzard anywhere around here, but I appreciate you joining on.
I got plenty of that in DC. Plenty.
You're the only Arctic Blizzard we acknowledge. So welcome. But yeah, this kid is going to be, they're expecting him to maybe fill out 220, 225 and be an inside linebacker. He played Auburn High 7A. Top level high school, so he looked good against some of the best competition in the state, and was the runner-up in the championship game, the state championship game against Thompson.
Did y'all?
And was
Did
that?
y'all see that championship game?
No. I didn't watch
the one that they lost in
epic fashion,
heartbreaking fashion.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, that's not how you want to lose a game, bro.
Right.
Yeah, I felt bad for those kids, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about Auburn High School.
So yeah, he's a local talent, and there's an article that actually came out a few days ago that talks about Auburn actually targeting local talent. And that was something that we discussed with JG Tate when we had him on a few weeks ago as to how Auburn has. We know Alabama would get its pick. Top pick of the top talent in the state. Like, that's a given with the success that they've had. But what was starting to become very frustrating was seeing schools like a Clemson, a Georgia, a Florida come in and get who was left over in terms of the talent. And so based on that article by 247 is that they were basically saying that Auburn is trying to reestablish itself as recruiting in the state and getting some of the local talent and not allowing it to slip away to some of our top competition. And they mentioned guys like Elijah Pritchett, Pritchett, 4-star out of Columbus, who's an offensive tackle, somebody that we definitely need. There's a Caden Story, who's a 4-star defensive end, who has a brother who's already at Alabama, but he's from Lynette. Like, that's like right next door to Auburn. So these are the type of stories that, we've been missing out on kids for a while. But it's just interesting to see this coaching staff, try to establish its recruiting ground in its own state. We know that is a lot of intrigue about our ability to recruit nationally, but I think it's very important that we establish ourselves and keep some of our top competition out of the state.
Right. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you don't live in Florida and drive to North Carolina for oranges. You live in Florida. Right. I mean, we live in a fertile recruiting ground, and Harsin has to take back the state to some degree. These kids, it needs to be a decision again about whether to go to Auburn or Alabama, and all these 5-stars, they can't all go to Alabama, right? Like, everybody who goes there can't play. So, I mean, there's enough to go around. The problem, like you said, was other schools outside of out of state coming in and plucking our top recruits.
Yeah.
Is a problem. So he's got to reestablish that. I just think the only way you do that is with winning, right? If he can win, he may be able to get some big flips for the 2022 class, in and during the season. And he's got to show that these guys are going to be a lot more competitive than they have been in the last 2 years under the last coach. So, it's a real simple formula. Win, and these kids will come to some extent, right? We're building a brand new football recruiting facility. We're improving conditions around the program as we speak. I think there was some booster money that was being held back because they didn't believe that Gus was the guy to get us there, and they didn't want to dump money into a dead investment. So, there may still be a faction that didn't want Harsin that may be holding back, but he can squash all that if he can win these first 2 years.
That's the challenge. The challenge is you're going to be handcuffed somewhat in some way here because of the dynamics of the program behind the scenes. But if you win, you get to call your shots.
Yep.
That's it. You could say, I'm the big boss. I want to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they're going to be like, hold up, big buddy. We bankroll this thing. And all you have to do is, with whatever you've got here, make it happen. Winning seasons, whether that's SEC championship bursts or SEC championships. You roll over Georgia and Alabama in the same season. I mean, we've done that twice in the last 8 years. Then you get to say, listen, I know what I'm doing. I need you to give me the money and get out of the way. And then you're rolling. Then it's momentum. Then you just have to keep it going.
Right. I mean, look at where we're at right now, or what we were left. And I still believe the key to success for this coach in recruiting is taking a lot of these 2019 recruits and 2020 recruits that never saw the field and figuring out who your studs are and putting them in a better position to make plays than we've been accustomed to for the last 8 years. Right. My sleeper, I keep saying that my sleeper for this spring is Malcolm Johnson Jr. I'm in love with his highlight tape. And I just think, this kid, Isaac, you made a point about why we had Tank back there returning kicks. And when we have all these kids on team who did that in high school or would be prime candidates to return kicks and make plays in some way, see the field in some way, even if they're not ready for prime time, get the talent on the field, man. Just, catch what is a punt return, catch the ball, juke somebody and get to the end zone.
Yeah.
These kids get out there and do that. So I'm really, really hoping that we see a little bit more of that this season. And this spring will be instrumental in them identifying and evaluating talent evaluation. Going to beat that over you guys' head. They are going to evaluate talent a lot differently than we've been accustomed to in the past. So through that evaluation, I just think we're going to see some guys spring up. And if you're a 2020 recruit, you're going to see that and say, listen, these guys I can play as a freshman. I can play as a sophomore.
Right.
Because the other thing that's going to be important for us moving forward in terms of recruiting in the 2022 class is that the seniority thing it carried too much weight under Gus.
Yeah.
Sure.
right? It just
Sure.
seemed like, why wasn't Tank starting from game one?
Right.
Yeah.
Can anybody explain that to me? Why he didn't see the field until, he didn't start. He wasn't starting until like 2 or 3, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, he started the Georgia game, but that was because Shivers
Hurt.
was hurt
And DJ Williams was hurt too.
and DJ Williams was not 100%. So they started Tank in the Georgia game. The only reason I can think of is literally seniority. Like, it wasn't necessarily a talent thing, because he got in the game. Like, they had him returning kicks, but again, the first kickoff. The first kickoff return was good. It was the second one that he came through and he ran through a Kentucky dude. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he might be a little real.
Right.
But then, he didn't see the field as a running back really until the Georgia game. And that was because of injury. So I don't know if that was because spring didn't exist, right? Like, he didn't get an opportunity in spring to show what he had, or if it was always the thing of like, well, Shivers is the senior running back, he's going to get the first team snaps.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And it's even more puzzling now when you look at the number of guys. It's only 2, but 2 guys who really didn't get playing time or get utilized well under Gus go play for Gus. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what to think anymore.
Oh man, yeah, Nick Craig Myers.
Junk. So,
I don't know what to say about that.
I know. But good luck. That's all I can say is good luck with that.
Yeah, so again,
they have seniority now, I guess.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
So,
Now they just have to trust him more than the guys he doesn't know at all. So
yeah. Now that they're seniors, right? They're like, I'll go play for him now because I'm guaranteed
a super senior now, man.
Yeah, right.
I know. We got a question here by Mike Arndt.
Yeah.
If I'm butchering it, forgive me. But yeah, he's asking.
Yeah,
I'm getting practice at this. Why didn't they let him run more? Speaking of Tank, didn't let him get those 1,000 yards. Go ahead, Ike.
I don't know that it was a matter of them not letting him run as much as he got injured in the middle part of the season. Had he not gotten injured, I think he gets 1,000 yards easily in a condensed year. That's so people. Is that the next topic?
We're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about.
Okay, I don't want to get too much into the Tank hype, but like, I just think that it was more so about him being injured for a period of time close to the end of the year. Honestly, the issue for us was, our offense was not clicking the way that it should have been, and it put us in the hole a lot early. And so they are playing catch up so much that the run game just wasn't the thing that they were leaning on to try. I don't know that it was a good strategy. So again, this is not me trying to comment on, this was a good strategy for us to figure out how to pass the ball. It was just a lot of issues. I just think Chad Morris, as a play caller, did not get a real good opportunity to install the offense that he wanted to install. And so he was really using Gus's playbook and calling plays from that more so than him installing his own thing, because it didn't seem like it was working early. Blocking assignments, they weren't picking them up right. They weren't running really great routes. It was a lot of things that as the season progressed, you saw more and more of Gus Malzahn concepts because it was what the kids were familiar with.
Right.
So.
In 2020, man, in hindsight, 2020 was a bad year to bring in a new offensive coordinator and a new offense for anybody, because you didn't have the convenience of a spring to actually work in those new systems, right? And so I think that was the one big thing that Chad Morris had working against him and that team, is that they just did not have the time to learn it. So to your point, Ike, when push come to shove, you're in the middle of a season and you're trying to game plan, injuries are starting to pile up. Let's just do what these guys are comfortable with and let's keep it moving. So
right. Yeah. I see a comment here by Blake. He says, I can't buy that Tank wasn't better than Shivers or Williams in preseason practices. Facts. Right, like I just don't understand.
I don't know if it's about talent though. Again, like I said that when I was making the comment, I don't know that it was a talent evaluation. I think it's more of a trust factor.
Shout out to you, sir.
There's a lot of people who look great in practice who don't look good on the field. He knew what he had in Shivers and DJ Williams on the field because he had seen it the year prior, right? And so it's really more so about, in the pressure of the moment, is this kid gonna know when to come and pick up a blitz? Right? Can I leave him on there for 3 straight plays? Like, is his conditioning in a place where it's necessary for, in the heat of the game, he's going to be able to be the guy for me? He didn't know that for certain without going through an entire spring So again, I don't know that it was really ever a talent thing. Like I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand that Tank has more talent than a lot of other players. It's just that let me see it in against SEC talent, right? Again, the same thing that people are talking about, like don't get too caught up in the hype of Demetrius Davis. We haven't seen him play yet. We haven't. That's 100% true. And couple that with the fact that we've harped on this over and over again, they're not playing the first team defense versus the first team offense. So yeah, he looks good against the second team defense, but how well is he going to play against a first team SEC defense? We don't know the answer to that because they didn't play a first team SEC defense even in practice, right? So we have to give the other guys who we've seen play SEC talent the opportunity. And again, I'm not saying I agree with this, so don't hear me say these things and say, yeah, because that makes a lot of sense. I'm just saying I surmise this is why this happened, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, these guys weren't seeing the field. If he's good, to me, in my mind, if he's good enough to start game 2, he was good enough to start game 1.
well, again, that injuries
Yeah,
are what caused that. Not he was thrust into duty probably earlier than they wanted him to.
I mean, is this Cam Petway? Is this Cam Petway part 2? Because the reason why Cam Petway became the guy is because of injuries. Remember, he was our H-back.
That's fair.
That's fair.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
fair.
So,
Yeah.
but he became a revelation after the guys ahead of him on the depth chart fell. You know? So,
yeah, that's my point. That's my point, though, about it just seems like we were consistently not putting the best guys on the field.
Yeah,
Right.
I question over and over again our ability to accurately evaluate talent. And don't get me wrong, every team misses every now and then, right? Like you're gonna have a guy you're like, oh man, why weren't we starting this kid? The frequency at which we miss is a little astounding, right? Like you can go back to the Cam Newton days, and they damn near had to force them to start Cam Newton. Like, how do you even assume Cam is not the best opportunity for you to win coming out of the spring? Like, make that make sense to me, right? I don't understand. Like, we can look at, Jeremy Johnson's evaluation. We can, hold on. Is Uzi on today? My bad. I apologize.
Uzi is on.
Uzi's on. I said his name. I apologize. Look, man, hold on. Let's talk about Rock Thomas for a second. I was not super impressed with Rock Thomas. I'm sorry.
As well, and that's what I wanted to get to.
Rock Thomas had one move. He had that little broke spin move that he used to do all the time, every time he got close to contact. And it works every now and then, but it's just like I was not super impressed with Rock Thomas's ability in the game. Now he's and
Felix, appreciate that.
What's up, Felix? Appreciate that super chat, man. Rock Thomas is an example of a kid who's got a ton of talent, right? Like if you just look at his talent, you're like, oh man, this is amazing. But then when he gets in the game, he goes to that same move every time he gets close to contact. And I'm just like, bro, do you have more than one move?
Right.
It just
Right.
I wasn't super impressed with Rock Thomas. I'm sorry. Like,
could he have been someone who
is.
he had the talent, but it's someone who could have benefited from proper coaching?
Yeah, he was
For sure.
He had fun.
You know what I mean? I feel like that would have. I think that would have worked with him well.
And also, I'll never forget, we were at 2014 Iron Bowl, and we were there. First play of the game, pass behind the line of scrimmage, dropped it.
And he just watched it.
Never got his weight up.
He never even gave the effort. He never even gave the effort to dive on the pass. He was just like, "Oh, it's incomplete."
That was good.
Yeah, facts. Never got his weight up. He just never got his weight up.
And see, so that's a good point to where Rock Thomas, I remember he was a 5-star running back. He was a big pickup.
5-star. They made a big deal about him.
Lane Kiffin came right at the end of the 2013 recruiting cycle, and he was trying to flip Rock Thomas at the last minute to Bama. So he was somebody that a lot of people wanted. He got here. He had fumble issues, injury issues, and he could not stay healthy. And listen, that's a 5-star recruit. What was that class? That class was a top 10, probably, maybe top 11. You take Rock Thomas out of that class, what was it? It's 3 or 4 spot drop because that's
drops.
how heavy fives are weighted. Really, what were we getting when we recruited? What we weren't. Yeah, we were top 10, top 11, top 12. Realistically, the talent that actually stayed here for 4 years, we were 20, 21, 22. We weren't getting and maintaining and developing.
That's a good point.
Talent.
That's a good point. Yeah, I went back and I looked since 2016.
Drink, gentlemen.
I don't have. I am tripping, man.
I went back and I looked at how many kids we recruited out of Florida since around the time Nate Craig Myers came. Right, it was like 18 kids. 10 of them transferred out.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and of the ones that were left, they either never saw significant playing time, and just only a handful, like 4 or 5, actually finished their careers at Auburn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a very good point. We were recruiting them, but in terms of the quality of players that actually stayed,
right,
we were in the 20s, not top 12. So recruiting looked good. Yeah. But when you go back and you reevaluate, if you went back and re-ranked those classes based on that, it would actually be very low.
Yeah.
So,
and again,
let's talk about this for a second.
Go ahead. I think we mentioned Coward, but again, I think coaching can help some of these kids. I will be curious to see what a Coward will be able to do with a Nick Eason as opposed to a Gardner, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So again, I just think the fit. Harsin talks a lot about the right fit, getting the right kids in here who's going to take to the type of coaching they're going to get. But go ahead, Ike.
Yeah, I want to address this comment right here really quickly. He found his way onto an NFL roster from JSU and scored for the Vikings. Again, talent-wise, no one. I think everybody is in agreement that Rock Thomas had a ton of talent. But the reason why he couldn't stay on an NFL roster is because talent alone. That's the same reason why Sammy Coates couldn't stay on an NFL roster.
Right.
It's the same reason why you're going to see a lot of guys like that's. There are a ton of kids that have a ton of talent. That just don't make it over into the league because it takes a little bit more than just being talented to even stay on a roster. We're not even talking about making you get there because of talent. Byron Coward didn't do anything super impressive after he transferred to Maryland, but because he was rated so highly coming out of high school, people were willing to take a chance on him and say, well, the issue is probably he wasn't developed properly. Let me get my hands on this raw talent and see what I can do. How much has he really done in the NFL so far?
Right.
I mean, you don't really hear a bunch of people buzzing about Byron Coward, but he was the #1 defensive line recruit of that entire class.
Right.
It's not really just about talent. And I think sometimes this star system is, I think it's allowing certain kids to get hype, but it's not necessarily the best evaluation of who's going to make the transitional step. And I think I love the fact that we have a coach seemingly that's not enamored with stars. He's going out and he's evaluating who fits my system, and I'm going to be able to utilize this person to the best of their ability. Forget what the star is next to their name. We'll get highly recruits at some point in time, right? But it doesn't matter. I don't care. Just give me any kid. And I'll make him into what we need him to be. And that's the kind of coach I really want to have here. Somebody like, okay, forget the star next to him. Can the kid play football? Because there's example after example after example of kids that have been misevaluated coming out of high school, who didn't really get all the hype coming out into college, but they are NFL stars. Yeah. So that star rating is bogus. Evaluate the kids that you want to, and you go find your talent wherever.
Right. And there's going to be some kids who are just obvious, who are 5 stars. Like, it's obvious they're gifted. It's obvious they're good players. But there are going to be a lot of more times often than not, diamonds in the rough. You look at the quarterback that we got committed to us now. Like, I want to see more of that, where we recruit a kid and it takes these recruiting services time to catch up to what the coaching staff is seeing.
Right. I love the fact that they just offered this kid before he even got a rating. Like, okay, y'all ain't rated him yet, but I like what I see. Let me give him an offer before everybody comes knocking at his door.
Right.
That tells me that this coaching staff is evaluating talent properly. And they're not, and again, they're not behind the 8 ball of other schools who've caught on before them. Right. They're actually seeing it before other schools are. And so that's what you want out of a coaching staff. That's what evaluation is like. And Holden, the quarterback, he just got a 4th star after being a 3-star. This came on the heels of losing out to the kid to Georgia. Right. And so getting him, and now he's starting to look good. He could actually continue to rise up the rankings. But that's what you want as a staff that can evaluate and see a kid and not care what recruiting services are saying, because they know what fits their system.
Yeah, and that's why I like we have an entire, like, there's a guy on staff right now. That's his whole job. Is recruiting. Like, he's not having to look at game film for the players and get prepped for the next week. He's not having to, like, his entire job is let me go find talent. right? Like I'm not splitting duty with this, focusing on high school kids. Who do we want to identify? And he's got a staff of people that's all they do. And then he passes it off to a coach to close the deal, right? I love that, man. I love it.
And that's the guy there, Darren Ursher, who's over that.
Director of recruiting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hopefully he's good at it.
So far,
it
seems like he seems like he's doing all right.
Yeah.
Not much to complain about, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. You mentioned Tank. I'm gonna transition on. You mentioned Tank. We was going to get into talking about him. There was actually an article by Bleacher Report a few days ago that talks about which 10 underclassmen could potentially or has the best shot at winning the Heisman. Now, amongst those mentioned was Max Johnson, who was a freshman quarterback last year for LSU, who came on strong as the season went on. Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. You had the freshman quarterback who filled in at Clemson. DJ. Yeah, he's mentioned. And then, of course, you got Bryce Young. But also in that list is Tank Bigsby.
The Tank.
So they mentioned him. And, of course, again, to your point, Ike, what you mentioned earlier was that Tank actually almost in a shortened season and a season where he got injured and didn't play. I think he missed one game, 1.5. Did he miss one game, I think?
A game and a half, really.
A game and a half? Okay. Still almost rushed for 1,000 yards. So very impressive.
He didn't get any really run snaps in the very first game of the season. So he, like 2.5 games, essentially, actually almost 3 full games, because he missed like another half of another game just because in a shortened season still almost made 1,000 yards. Super impressive.
Right. So that is why they mentioned Tank as a possible Heisman candidate. But just want to know,
TJ, it was for underclassmen. That's why. TJ asked why wasn't Bo Nix on that list. They were naming not possible Heisman candidates, but underclassmen who could be Heisman candidates.
I'm also detecting a little bit of shade there, but
okay, well, maybe
clearly missed some sarcasm there. Clearly missed some sarcasm there, but whatever.
But yeah, man, like what are you guys? I'm gonna start with you, B. Will. Like, what do you think to this whole idea of Tank? And we already see the hashtag in the comment section, but what do you think about Tank's chances of, and I think we had a facts or nah that Tank would win a Heisman before he left Auburn, but what are your thoughts about 2021 and Tank's chances, B. Will?
Well, being fair, I think what we saw from Tank last year was he can play better than his line can play. He doesn't need an all-world line to produce very good numbers. Like the track he was on for the number of snaps he got, if we have a 12-game season and some, smaller out-of-conference foes, then he definitely eclipses 1,000. He might even push 1,500. If they had known he was the guy from the beginning and he got the ball every game. It's fair to assume also that they might have to use him as protection until they get the quarterback position right. But really, you don't know what we've got from the line. That's really the biggest thing for me is everybody's going to be doing something new. Running back might be the one position where you can plug and play the easiest. Offensive line is not. And I'm sure the standards are going to be new for the players on the line. The strength standards, the conditioning standards are probably going to be new for the guys on the line. I wonder how much, and it won't be due to Tank's play or whether it's good or bad. It will be, what does the offensive coordinator and the coach want to do on offense? And that's something we don't know because I'm sure it's going to be specific to what we have here. But I don't know. It's really hard to say if we can get competent play out of the quarterback position, then we think we have some very good wide receivers. Tank might not be the focus. He might not if we get that nailed down early. But if we can't, then we may ride them. I have no idea what their priorities are. So it's hard to say that this next season will be that. Now, his junior year, after the offensive line has been put through the fire, I think that's the season. In my head, that's the season. His junior season, 2022, will be the one where he has the best chance of winning a Heisman because the offensive line will be more set, more stable. This next year, I'm not so sure, but he could. He has the talent to do it, bar none. It's just what do the coaches want to do with our offense? That's the question mark.
I don't know how you have Tank on your offense and he's not the focal point. Forget how talented your quarterback might be. Forget how talented your wide receivers are. Tank being able to generate yards after contact. Tank being able to make plays when it wasn't blocked well. That should immediately signal to me that that's a kid that you want to get the ball in his hands, right? Like even if it's on running back screens, like he can catch the ball fairly well. He had that one catch. It might have been.
Georgia?
I think it was in the Georgia game. Where he's running the wheel route, and the Georgia DB jumped the route, and that barely got over the top. But he was able to catch it, turn around, stay in bounds, and get a couple more yards. I was like, man, how were we not getting this dude the ball, man? I fundamentally, like, it made my brain like melt a little bit on the inside. I was just like, I've seen him run through a guy on a kickoff return. I've seen him generate a bunch of yards after contact so far. He can clearly catch the ball. He's been an outlet this entire game in Georgia. Then you see him get feature back snaps the next game. You like, hey man, come on, man. What are we doing here?
Why didn't we know?
Like, he is an all-purpose back. He can catch. He was blocking well. He's picking up his blocking assignments properly, like a willing blocker. And he's a dynamic runner. How is he not a feature piece to anyone's offense who has him on the team? That is a shame. That's tragic that it took 2.5 games for them to figure that out. I'm sorry. I don't care who was on the roster before him. You don't bring LeBron onto the Cavs and put him on the bench to start the season. I'm sorry. It just doesn't happen. LeBron James got drafted that high because they wanted him to play, and you know he can play with these boys. Tank clearly is the most talented running back on the roster. Clearly. And that's saying something because we have talented running backs on the roster. He's clearly the most talented one. How he's not getting starter snaps from game one is silly to me, despite all that stuff I just said about spring and seniority. Makes no sense.
And here's the thing. You have to also acknowledge that offenses have changed. We're now at a point where, back in the days when you had running backs win the Heisman, they were a focal point of the offense. And that's still the case today. But I think the last running back to win the Heisman was the running back from Bama in 2015, Lacey. No, not Lacey, but he won it, and Bama won the championship.
They went their offense. Like he was because the
14-1.
It was some guy who had transferred in and he was shaky. Their quarterback was just all right. But it was Derrick Henry all day. I think he got 2,000 yards that season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
but when you got
he was a little bit south. Derrick Henry was he fell a little bit short of 2,000. Okay. But I think the last few games of the year, like they were just feeding them. Especially when he got into the playoffs. Yeah. But my thing is that
a whole different animal though. Like he's been a beast since high school, bro. Like, cool take. Yeah. He was the same dude.
Yeah.
Like I don't get how you are like the same guy from high school all the way to the pros. He just
Coker.
I don't want to talk about
Coker
it.
Was the
that makes me sad.
That was it.
Jay Coker.
But it's to me
Florida State transfer, I think, right?
Tank has he was the FSU transfer. Tank has the least amount to prove. What has to improve, or who has to prove themselves, is the O-line, right? The O-line has to prove that they can do better in pass protection. Like we did a film review this past week where, granted, it was one of their worst performances, but we saw that there are some issues along the offensive line that has to be ironed out in pass protection, right? And the quarterback has to prove himself. Basically, you have a situation where you have a great running back, but when you get into the teeth of the SEC schedule and you're playing teams that know how to factor out or basically key in on your running game, your best weapon, what can you do? Right? That was how you used to beat Auburn in the past anyway, was just stack everybody in the box and force them to beat you throwing the ball. So if we can't improve the passing offense, if we can't improve Bo Nix, if we can't prove that we can utilize tight ends in the offense, we got young receiving cores. If they can't improve, like we have to be able to keep the defenses honest just so Tank can work. Like I think he can get yards and eat up yards, against weaker competition, but in the games that matter, and those are the games that people in media are looking at. LSU had Leonard Fournette. They kept wanting to put him in the Heisman discussion, but when he ran into Alabama and they stacked the box and he couldn't do nothing, he couldn't work because LSU had an abysmal offense.
Quarterback, they had abysmal, the best wide receivers ever. Here's what let me know LSU was always in a different league as far as recruiting because their quarterback play had been bad from 2007 really through 2000 whenever what's his name? They just won the championship in the Heisman. Joe Burrows got there. They were bad at quarterback. How do you get some of the best wide receivers?
There were 3 yards in the cloud of dust
in the NFL with terrible quarterback play. What are you telling these guys? I don't want to get into that.
3 yards in the cloud of dust.
My point being, that let me know that they were in a whole nother league because what Gus tried to do, and part of the reason why we threw way more than we should have with the running backs we had. He has to convince quarterbacks that they're going to get their stats, that they are going to be able to put something on tape that makes them attractive at the next level. And you have to throw the ball to do that. We heard that too much in recruiting interviews. Oh, well, we know we're looking to see who spreads the ball around to get the wide receivers to come, to get the quarterbacks to come. If you are a better developer of the talent that comes to your school, you don't have to try to prove that every season. It will just show when they get out of your program and they go to the pros. But unfortunately, Gus had to do some of his selling with the play calling, and it hurt us because we shouldn't be calling these plays for this quarterback we got. But when you can't put together a competent offense, otherwise, you have to overdo it at the quarterback position, and he wasn't capable, and it hurt us. But anyway, right. Mike, you missed it.
To comment to Damian, yes, by the time you got in postseason, yes, he had well over 2,000 yards, but you got to remember. He won the Heisman prior to those games, so he was just south of 2,000. But yes, when it was all said and done, he was well over. To your point. So, what you got, Mike G?
Sorry, my computer shut down because of the chat over here. But assuming we're still talking about Bo winning the Heisman or Tank, I'm sorry. See what y'all did to me?
You see what I did?
I didn't come here to talk about that today, fellas. So I'll give you guys again your Sunday sunshine pump moment. I do think that he has a legitimate shot at a Heisman this season, but a lot of things have to go right, and this is why I'm mostly excited about us being in a new scheme. Right, I think that in a new scheme where he's not going to be an improved runner if we do not have an improved passing game this fall, right? We've got to improve in the passing game. We cannot be one-dimensional. I heard Caesar make a point about, Leonard Fournette, again, looked like a monster until he ran in to a team that was good in coverage and could stack the box against him. And then there was nothing he could do.
Yeah,
much, right? And so we can't be that way. We weren't, I tried to highlight for somebody how remarkable a season I felt like Trask had as a quarterback because they had no running game.
Right.
And he put up the numbers that he had, right? Accurate. And I think that it works the other way around as well, too. Like a running back that's able to put up Heisman numbers with no passing game is a lot rarer, though. Right, because good teams in our league will just stack the box against you. They will literally just say, hey, we're not going to. If you don't have a quarterback that can at least burn you over the top every once in a while, it's just not going to work in our league. So what I do really believe is that better play calling is going to help Bo. And we have a lot of work to do in terms of run blocking because they actually got worse as the season went along. Our pass blocking got better as the season went along, but our run blocking went down. Right. And so run blocking is just going to have to get better. And for him to even achieve what he achieved last year, in spite of poor run blocking grades. Now, if you missed our Chop It Up with the Pro with King Dunlap, where we kind of went over some offensive line stuff from the Georgia game, we have a center who looked lost at times. I mean, literally couldn't find a person to block after they snapped the ball.
Yeah.
Right.
It was unreal to watch. You know, a lot of people feel like I've absolved our O-line of any of our offensive struggles. I have not, right? I just, have made the point that they are not 100% responsible for our passing struggles. But there are a lot of things that are going on with this O-line that just have to get fixed. And, Nick Brahms didn't look like a natural center to me. He just didn't. But I had no clue what was going on. Yeah. I mean, this is why
Jonathan Harris is like, that film session hurt.
Yeah, listen, this is why we're bringing you guys this stuff, right? I think I can go ahead and plug it now because we have it locked in. But our next Chop It Up with a Pro film session will be with Devin Aromashadu. And he's going to go through some wide receiver technicals with us, not on this next Chop It Up, but the one after that. So he's going to take questions, Q&As on the first one, and then we will do a film review on the second Chop It Up. But we've gone through it with these guys, and we looked at that O-line with King, and it just looked like we were better in some spots, but as a unit, there were times where one person not knowing their assignment threw the balance of everything that we were doing off on O-line. And the better teams like Georgia, they had some well-designed blitzes in that game. We demonstrated that, right? And they were designed to catch a guy slipping.
Right.
And just so happened, a lot of times during that game, we had a guy slipping.
Yeah.
And when your center doesn't know what's going on, a lot can go wrong, right? So I'm stressing that, I think he has a shot at it. I do. But he's not going to. I don't think we've ever seen a Heisman candidate or a Heisman winner running back that their O-line wasn't on point.
Right.
Right. So
or that they was keeping the defenses honest with a legitimate passing game.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I still think when you talk about best running backs in the last 20 years, I think that Troy Mason gets left off that list a whole lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really, really don't have an appreciation for what he did in that 2013 season. He was every 3 touches, he was a first down.
Yeah.
Third and short, He was an automatic first down, and he ran well behind, a better than average O-line. But for the most part, that
fullback. Let us not forget, we had an NFL fullback on.
We did. Was it Prosh?
Happened to be did
Jay
not come
Prosh.
here. Right.
Prosh, yeah.
He transferred the season before because
From Illinois.
He had family in Mobile who was sick, and he wanted to be close to his family. So got to give credit where it's due to the staff at the time knowing what to do with the guys that we had. But he was a gift. Jay Prosh was a gift. We have never reproduced what he could do since, even with Chandler Cox, who was on an NFL roster. He was not Jay Prosh. Jay Prosh was not a fullback you put in the game. He was a special old school throwback fullback, and he was definitely key to making that run game. But Trey Mason he still had to be the guy to do it, and he did.
Well, look at what they had that year, right? And this is what I'm hoping for this year. If Tank is going to win the Heisman, I think that we're gonna look back and say that whoever we started at quarterback can make people pay over the top when you blitz to keep people honest, right? And to ease some pressure on this O-line so that the playmakers can get time to make plays in space. Right. Nick Marshall wasn't, from a completion percentage standpoint, he wasn't very accurate.
Right.
But when he threw the ball down the field, it got caught. And if you blitzed him, he burns you. One way or the other, he was going to make a play. If you consistently blitz Nick Marshall, somebody's open. If you blitz him, somebody's open. So he was either going to find the open guy, right? Or he was going to take off running with the ball because him and Trey Mason were a deadly read option.
Yes.
Combination.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were crazy efficient with that read option. But again, Chris Todd told us Nick Marshall was a freak.
He's a freak.
He's a freak. So if you're not going to have a freak, you at least need somebody back there that can burn you over the top. Right, you at least need somebody back there that can burn you over the top and ease the pressure on the linebackers and everybody crowding the line of scrimmage to let Tank run. That's it. There has to be a legitimate fear. Right.
Yeah, it was definitely facts here. He was a guaranteed first down because his yards after, I think he had a ridiculous stat as to like how many average yards he got after contact. It was crazy. So, yeah, he was definitely a guaranteed first down. Man.
Yeah. So, speaking of this, chop it up with a pro, we did, I wanted, again, we're at the end of the month. It's February 28th right? And we've got some exciting things coming in terms of content for you guys. So if you missed the last one, what we're doing right now is we're airing that for everybody to watch, but only insiders are able to comment. So if you are not an insider, I highly recommend you become an insider because the content is only going to get better as we go along. I hope you guys have seen that over the last few weeks. We're bringing more access, more interviews. So I did want to play a little something for you guys. It was kind of like a thank you that the guys who have interviewed with us have done, but we have more interviews on deck. So I'm going to let this roll right quick.
My name is Devin Aroma Shadu.
I'm Courtney Taylor. Hey, this is Jairus McIntyre.
Hey, my name is Ben Grubbs.
This is King Dunlap.
This is Chris Todd.
And you are rocking with the War Report.
And you are rocking with the War Report.
And you're rocking with the War Report.
You are now rocking with the War Report, baby.
And you are now rocking with the War Report.
You are rocking with the War Report on YouTube.
Hey, so rock with us. These guys are all War Report insiders. We're thankful that they've donated their time to help us educate our listeners on the game. Isaac and King did a phenomenal job kind of going through and breaking down tape. So we're looking forward to bringing you guys more of those film sessions. Because of YouTube's rules, we cannot post the film sessions after. Right. So they will go live, but they won't be up. So you're going to have to catch that live if you can. They're every other Thursday. So not this coming Thursday, but the following Thursday, we'll have our Q&A with Devin. If you are not an insider, you can become one. If you're on an iPhone, you're going to have to do so from a computer because Apple sucks sometimes. So we appreciate you guys' support. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Caesar. We got some other things to talk about here in a minute.
I was thinking this to myself as well, but this is why we love you guys, because you say what I'm thinking. That was too.
Listen. Chris Todd is a real one. He's a real one. He's a real one. I really appreciated. I really appreciated his interview and the conversation after we turned the cameras off. I mean, it was interesting listening to him when we talked. We talked about Tank for Heisman. We talked about incoming recruits. We've talked a lot about attitude on the show. And what it's going to take for these guys to have a winning attitude. And one of the things that Chris said that stuck in my mind was, listen. Every year, they're trying to bring somebody in that's better than you. So we can be teammates, we can be AU family, but at the end of the day, the backup is coming for what I got.
Yeah.
He's coming for my life, right? He's coming for everything that I have, and I'm just going to hand it over to him. So, we can be family or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's a competition, and you want to win. Right. I want him on the bench, and I want me in the game. Right. So
Mike, who's the starting quarterback at Texas Tech?
Graham Harrell.
Graham Harrell.
Yeah.
He told a story. I think wasn't it Graham? I think it was Graham. And they were running like summer drills or whatever. He was running with the receivers. And
no, that was Cam.
Was that Cam? No. This has happened at Texas Tech, where Graham was trying to be slick and get in more reps than Chris Todd.
Yeah.
And Chris Todd was like, he basically cursed him out. Like, no, MF, like I am going to, like, I'm getting my reps just as you're not cheating me. I don't care who you are. Yeah. Like his attitude and his mentality. Like, I don't think we talk enough about Chris Todd when we talk about former Auburn quarterbacks. We immediately go to the Nick Marshalls. We go to the J Cams. But man, like if we had a Chris Todd on our team, and when you think of again how mentally tough you have to be buried on the depth chart with a new coaching staff who's ignoring you,
coming off a shoulder surgery,
coming off a shoulder surgery, not participating in the spring, and go out and compete and win the job. Like that's a whole that mentality. He's different. Chris Todd is just different. So,
yeah, he was built different, and what I'm looking for are more of these guys that are built different. I mean, he transferred to a small junior college, and he came to Auburn, and I really just believe that we can get back to that here. But it starts with evaluation. You have to be able to evaluate a guy and say, you know what, this guy actually gives us the best chance to win. Favoritism doesn't matter. Seniority doesn't matter. None of that that kind of caste system that they had for people within our program. I'm hoping that's just all gone. And the hardest worker, that was kind of a tenet of the Tuberville era, was the hardest worker won the job.
Yeah.
You remember guys like Roderick Hood. He came in and he was a walk-on.
Right.
Started his freshman year and never gave the job back.
Right.
And I filmed almost every single one of his college practices. I can tell you, man, seeing him return kicks in the Super Bowl, was amazing for a guy who walked on to our team, did not get drafted, signed as a free agent, and had to work hard for it. But at every level, they chose him because he outworked everybody. And if you watch that hype video, that's what Harsin working out with the players said to me.
Right.
I'm bringing hard hat, hardest worker. Like, you going to let the coach outwork you in the weight room?
Right.
I mean, think about that, right? Like, if I was in the weight room with Harsin, I'm like, listen, I ain't going to let this old man outwork me. I'm in there, coach. Let's go. Let's get it going. That being said, Isaac and I wanted to talk to you guys about something. Caesar, I'm gonna turn it back over to you, but I wanted to plug this real quick. We're working on a lot of things at the War Report, and so we're actually starting a social media campaign. If you saw this week's Facts or No, we actually asked the question: who could bench more, Brian Harsin or Derek Mason? Now we're getting this started, and we are depending on you, our YouTube War Report family, to help us get this social media campaign to build enough awareness so that they cannot ignore us. The goal is to raise money for charity. And Isaac, if for those of you who don't know, Isaac does all our graphics and he's sick with it. So we put a little something together. This is the liftoff between Coach Harsin and Coach Mason. Hashtag get your weight up. Strength and conditioning is coming back to the AU, baby. Now, both these guys look like they're pretty diesel. I got my money on Harsin. I'm hashtag Team Harsin. But we would like these guys to lift off for charity. We've reached out to some people. We're going to get the hashtags popping on Twitter, spread it on Facebook, in all your circles. Hashtag at these guys. Do not let them ignore us, man. Let's get these guys in the weight room to lift against each other. It's going to be a 185 burnout for charity. Right. We're going to get this thing going, man. So you guys, we're looking forward to the enthusiasm. We have some very enthusiastic members, and I can't wait to see this thing happen. We're going to make it happen one way or the other.
Dope stuff, man. Yeah, and definitely, guys, y'all have already, like, we were trying to get an interview with Harsin, which will still happen. I'm already speaking that into existence.
Yeah, we'll get him.
And because y'all believe, y'all have already been adding Brian Harsin about coming to talk to the War Report. So we know you guys will jump all over this. So we appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah, listen, they don't manage their own Twitters, but if we at them enough, the people managing their Twitters will have to take notice.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to add them. We're going to bully them a little bit into this. But I just think it's a win-win, raise money for a charity. There are a lot of things going on in the world right now, and so we're getting the social media campaign started. I would be so thankful and humbled for you guys' help in making this happen. As our platform grows, so does our social responsibility to make sure that we're using our platform to do good in the world. And so we want to continue to do that.
Indeed. All right, man. Let's yes, we must. Well, why not? Let's take a sip. Yes, let's take a sip for strength and conditioning, because that's all what this is about. All right. All right. So now we're getting into the final discussion. Hopefully I can jump on with us in a little bit, but we're gonna go ahead and start.
Listen, Bobo can jump in there if he wants to.
He can jump into. We don't want to alienate nobody.
Yeah, show us those 3 reps. For sure.
Oh man, but yeah, man. let's talk about this article. ESPN released an article Friday, start circulating on yesterday, just throughout the weekend.
Okay.
And they basically gave a list of the top 60 QBs, the top college quarterbacks, and they did 60. Right. Now, the guy who wrote the article, Bill Connolly, he wrote an article a few months back trying to decide who had the better Heisman season, Cam Newton or Joe Burrow. All right. And that's something that I sent you guys in a chat. And this article, he basically wrote list the top 60. So I'm not going to list all 60. We're not going to discuss them all, but I'm just going to point out that number 1 was Baker Mayfield. Hold your responses. Number 2, Cam Newton. All right. Number 3, Vince Young. Number 4, Tim Tebow. Number 5, Joe Burrow. 6, Deshaun Watson. Number 7, Kyler Murray. Number 8, Lamar Jackson. Number 9, you're going to love this one, Mike, Marcus Mariota. Okay. Number 10, RG3, Robert Griffin III. Number 11, Trevor Lawrence. I think Johnny Manziel came in at 13. Interesting on this list was Kellen Moore at 14 out of Boise. So that's someone to make mention of. Now, I believe Harsin was the OC at the time that Kellen Moore was playing. I don't think he was the head coach. He was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. I think Tua came in at 19. Jameis Winston, famous Jameis, was 16. Guys, thoughts on that list? I mean, and again, this is why these lists exist, to get us talking about it. So what are our thoughts here? Okay, let's go with the obvious. Baker Mayfield. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, that's a special kind of crack you got to be on, right? Like, I don't understand Baker Mayfield. I mean, I get that he won a Heisman. At least he picked a guy who won a Heisman.
Jonathan's asking where was Cam Newton? He was number 2.
He was 2 on the list. But I don't understand Baker Mayfield in the top 5. Honestly.
I don't either. I do not either.
What?
Now his because this was like one of their, like, if you had to be subscribed to ESPN Plus to actually read the entire article and read his comments, right? Mm-hmm. So he talked about the fact. So basically, he gave Baker Mayfield the Lifetime Achievement Award. He looked at the totality of his career at Oklahoma, right? And the fact that I'm just giving the argument. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. All right. I don't agree either, but he basically led Oklahoma to 3 conference championships and led them to the college football playoff twice.
Right.
So that was kind of the argument there after he transferred from Texas Tech.
Right. But he let Georgia come back on them.
Well, he never got past the semifinal.
Right, yeah. But they were up big on Georgia in that playoff game, and then he melted down and Georgia came back and won.
Sure.
Right. So, like, I'm not sure all the other guys on that list finished the job. A lot of other guys on that list finished the job.
There's no way I'm putting him ahead of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to me, right?
There's no way I'm putting him ahead of Joe Burrow.
No disrespect to Cam. Because until Joe Burrow, I felt like he had the greatest single season for any quarterback in college football history. Number 1, what he did was unique. He led the SEC in rushing as a quarterback. Over 1,400 yards rushing. That's an incredible feat. He scored over 50 touchdowns. He did everything Tim Tebow did and more in his Heisman season. Like,
he had a high percentage, like completion percentage. It was ridiculous what his completion percentage was. I thought it was like in the high 70s.
Who, Cam?
No, I'm talking about Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow was just under 80% completion percentage.
78.
Yeah. Like, he was just under 80%. I mean, he scored 60 touchdowns on the highest scoring offense in college football history. And he was the most accurate quarterback we've seen in college.
Ever.
I think that he proved it, too, when he got to the league that he was the real deal. They had no choice but to start him, and he was tearing at 300-yard games every other week, it seemed like, until he got hurt. That guy was the real deal.
He he hit Bama with the 40-piece and Bryant Denny.
Right. I mean, they just whatever that needed to be done to win. Like all those LSU receivers, good God, man. How great must it have been to be an LSU receiver to have a quarterback that's always going to hit you right in the numbers on every single pass.
Right.
You know, I mean, he was an upgrade from like a Mac Jones-ish type quarterback, right? That we saw this year, where I think he was better with ball placement, but he was under pressure quite a bit during that season.
I'm putting you in timeout, Big Gap.
I think people would be shocked to see how much Joe Burrow was actually threw the ball under pressure in that 2019 season.
Right.
He was under pressure a lot. Like teams just had decided if we're just going to sit back, he's going to carve you up.
Right.
So we're going to come after him. And he still carved them up. He was sneaky athletic for the college level, so he could escape pressure. And then when he did, he made ridiculous throws. His mechanics are some of the best I've ever seen. You know, to put Baker Mayfield over Joe Burrow, I'm sorry. Like I got to know, did that guy graduate from Oklahoma? Like,
I think Kyler Murray had a better single season than Baker Mayfield did. If we're gonna talk about Oklahoma quarterbacks,
yeah, he put up better numbers.
Yeah, so it's did the same. He basically took Oklahoma to the college football semifinal. He did what Baker did. He probably didn't do it as often because he was only there a year, but yeah, like he basically did in 1 year what Baker had been doing.
Right, but Cam is the undisputed 2 in my mind.
I agree with that.
Cam Newton is the undisputed number 2 in my mind because not only did he take us to the ship, right, in terms of the surrounding cast of characters, he had probably the weakest support cast of a lot of the guys on that list.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't really think that can be argued. Our offensive line was good. But for the most part, and I don't want to dismiss, Darvin Adams and Terrell Zachary because I like those guys a lot. But in terms of next level talent, he didn't have like true freshman running back in Michael Dyer. I mean, there was a lot of things there. Think about how many of those guys he played with never went on to play at the next level. Right. So it wasn't like they were stacked with NFL talent. Right. I'm just saying Cam did more with less.
I guess that's some people's argument for why Cam is number 1 because you consider what Burrow had around him.
Right, but his offensive line wasn't great. And that's all I'm saying. Like he was constantly under pressure.
But when you are
I'm not mad if you put Cam in number 1. I'm not mad at it at all. War Eagle. But what I'm saying is that what we saw in Joe Burrow, it'll be a while before we see that again. So what do you have, B?
No, I got Cam number 1 for all the reasons Mike just went down because Cam had no NFL talent really on the offensive roster. Defense, of course, Fairley was over there making people taking quarterbacks out the game for us, and that is a reason we were able to go undefeated that season. But if you take Cam Newton off of that team, what do we do? I can at least 4 games where we lose the game. At least 4 games where we aren't running away, where we lose that game in that season if Cam's not there. He's at least a 4-win difference. Right. And I'm not telling you Joe Burrow's is not the same. There were probably 3 games where Joe Burrow was absolutely the guy who needed to be there for them to win that game.
Right.
And that's not too big of a difference, but Joe Burrow was throwing at some NFL receivers. He had an NFL running back in the backfield with him. They didn't have a great defense. They outgunned people. They did not have a great defense, but hey, we didn't have a great defense that our championship Cam's year either. Right. So to me, it looks more like, did you dominate? Yes. When it was tight, did you raise your game?
Right.
Yes. It's like that's something Burrow did and that Cam was able to do too.
That's why I'm not mad if you put
against LSU where he outran Patrick. When you saw him break away from Patrick Peterson and all world NFL quarterback,
come on, man.
I think he won the Heisman off of that play.
That was his Heisman run. It was
right. So if you think about it, Be Easy has this comment here about our defense. This can't be understated as well, too. Right. They had to outscore people.
Right.
because that was the worst statistical scoring defense to ever have won a national title. We gave up more points than any national championship ever in the history of college football that year. So, and we were down a lot that season as well, too. I mean, there was like 7 different games that we were down by at least 14 points and had to come back and win.
We played in a lot of close games for us to have the dominant players we had.
Yeah, not to mention the greatest comeback, I think, in college football history. Down 24-0 at Alabama and coming back to win with everything that was on the line in that game as well, too, because we were going to the SEC championship.
The investigation, them mocking him and his dad, and being down on the road, it's like it wasn't just what he was physically able to do. Like his presence alone made everybody better. So it's not like if you replace him with a guy who can run and make the same throws. His presence there made the entire team better. I have not seen that happen in that way since Tebow, but Tebow still wasn't the passer or the runner that Cam is.
Tebow was an awful passer.
He was. But when you got the athletes they had, it really doesn't matter too much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Percy Harvin was he was a difference maker on that team with him.
To Brian's point, because Brian is like, who did Vince Young have, right? Like, listen, he played with 10 other guys on offense that went to the league. Yeah, I think he had Jamal Charles.
I think he did.
Yeah, he wasn't doing it by himself. Yeah, he wasn't doing it by himself, right? Like, I mean, Vince had talent. Yeah. So,
they had a lot of talent on defense, too.
Yeah, they were stacked.
That was a
Chiswick was a part of that squad. Like he was a defensive coordinator.
That's right. He left us and went there. And then he got a national title there too, right? So, I mean, when you look at it, Cam, to me, again, undisputed number 2, arguable between him and Joe Burrow about 1, because I just think that Joe Burrow's completion percentage cannot be overlooked. I don't think you can be the most accurate quarterback in the history of college football and then not be in the conversation for number 1. Right after leading your team to a national title, no game they played was in doubt, except for Bama. Bama was the only game where I thought, but they still were scoring at will, so it was not like it was really in doubt. Bama had to pull off miracles just to keep it close.
Right.
You know, and I would even say that season. See, this is what frustrates me about Auburn. Right. We might have been we played them tough that year.
Arguably, I think that was their tougher game.
I think that was their toughest game.
I think that was their toughest game was the Auburn game more so than the Bama game.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a championship level defense in 2019, but we were offensively inept on the road. You know, our friend was he was literally the worst quarterback in college football on the road.
Our friend.
And that was too much for our defense to overcome. You know, so but we gave Joe Burrow fits in that game.
Right.
We just couldn't do enough offensively to stay in it. But
a holding call.
Abysmal
in that game.
So when you take his whole season into account, you know, all the teams that they had to beat, they beat some really good teams that season, ridiculous amount of top 10 teams at some point. And then in the playoff where you have one extra game against somebody who's good, because he had to face another Heisman candidate and Jalen Hurts. And I'm a big fan of Jalen Hurts. And I didn't think that Oklahoma really stood a chance, but you know, under the circumstances, they just ran into that buzzsaw that was LSU that year.
Yeah.
So Cam is he was number 1 in my book before 2019. And now I could flip-flop the two. I don't think that's disrespectful to either one of them. 60 touchdowns just can't be overlooked. It just can't, right?
And I just look, I mean, you made Georgia look silly. I mean, you made Bama look silly. You made Oklahoma look silly. Like you beat up on Clint. Like you beat them like a video game for real. Right. Yeah. And so to me, it's just when you look at that performance, man, like it's just hard to ignore. It really is hard. And it's why it's disrespectful to put him at 5, in my opinion. So yeah, like you could put him at 1 or 2. Is Vince Young the 3rd best?
Ooh, I don't know about that either.
You know what? Here's in the same spirit of Cam being the guy on the team, Lamar Jackson that year Listen, buddy. It was him, maybe one or two good players, and some guys. Like we talking me, I hadn't lifted a weight in 4 years since I had shoulder surgery. I was out there and often not playing to even my potentials. Like Lamar Jackson got let down. That year he had some veterans on the squad, but what I saw him do in the league is exactly what he did at Louisville.
Right.
And they housed people. That game between them and Clemson that year was a classic college football game. I think he deserves that because he had the numbers. He did have the wins. He had the stats. I really enjoyed Lamar Jackson's year that year. That's my number 3. I could. It's all
if you're gonna shoot him bail, he was at Louisville. He was not he wasn't at a power school.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can live with that. I definitely live with it. And then you know, again, validated by what he's been able to accomplish at the next level. Right. You know, that's something in my book as well too, because you have a lot of Heisman winners. I mean, who remembers Jason White?
Right.
Oklahoma quarterback, Heisman winner. I mean,
dumped out by LSU in that championship game.
Yeah, I mean, just nothing that they could do because he was not as good, you know, as his numbers suggested. So, you know, to me, the guys who are actually as good as their numbers suggest, to me, Tebow falls down the list for that reason.
Right.
Okay.
No disrespect to Florida and Tebow, but he falls down the list because I just think that the cast of characters around him had a lot to do.
Elite. The whole defense that year was elite. The Pouncer twins, elite.
Yeah, man. I mean, he just
on the team. They were Percy Harvin, elite. They were everywhere.
He had help. He had a lot of help. Sam Bradford, again.
I'll probably put. I mean, Sam Bradford was a better quarterback than Tebow, obviously.
I think so, but again, if you look at what he was, I think that we proved that was you know, that year, Oklahoma was the highest scoring offensive college football going into that national championship game. They were putting up video game numbers, and they could only muster 14 points against that Florida defense. They were putting a 50 spot on everybody. So
they went nuts that year.
Yeah, and I try to tell everybody, I was like, you think that they're gonna score a 50 on Florida? You're out of your mind. That's not happening.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And they didn't have to do anything. Florida didn't have to do anything amazing offensively because, you know, their defense was so good. They had, you know, there was a lot. I mean, there's just been a lot of really good quarterbacks over the last 20 years. We've seen some amazing athletic feats, I think, at the QB position. This year, it was nice to see somebody that wasn't a running back or a quarterback win the Heisman. Cool. Yeah, Smith was just, I mean, he had a great season, and I was very happy to see that they just didn't default to giving it to the quarterback like they always do. You know, but I just don't know. Like Cam season is really hard to quantify everything because it wasn't just the numbers. To B's point, it was everything that he had. I mean, talk about mental toughness. There was everything he had to endure that season to finish that season, and the ultimate test in that 2010 Iron Bowl, down 24-0, and those guys just never quit. You know, Bama was coming after him.
This is an interesting question. If Nick Marshall had beat Jameis, where would we have put him?
Not very high. And
I don't think he cracks the top 20.
Yeah, not very high. And because he had, again, his cast of characters were much better than what Cam had, if you ask me. Right. Trey Mason at running back. I mean, he ran for 1,800 yards that season.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
listen, Nick Marshall was an exceptional athlete who played the quarterback position well. Nick Marshall never became a quarterback under Gus Malzahn, and I think for that, you know, you give him props for being a plug and play in Gus's system and taking it as far as he could. But when you're talking about quarterbacks and being able to play that position, listen, when Nick Marshall left Auburn months later, he was working out as a cornerback.
Yeah.
Right. He was just an athlete. So I don't know if you rank him that high, even if he was to win the championship. You know what I mean? I think Auburn, just to your point, Mike, that he had a lot of pieces. Listen, you got Jay Prosh, you got a good O-line, you got a workhorse in Trey Mason, one of the most underrated backs in Auburn history, toting that rock and allowing people not to key in on you. The offense should go. So, I think you would rank. I mean, he would rank in this list somewhere. I just don't think he would be as high.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm looking at the chat here, and I'm always amazed at how smart our listeners are. You guys are dead on with everything that you're saying. I will go back to this, to Jonathan Harris's point that none of those teams would have stopped Cam. Like, while I agree with that statement, I think that some of those teams would have outscored us because of our defense.
Right.
So they may not have stopped Cam, but I don't think our defense would have stopped Joe Burrow.
No.
Right.
No.
So I mean,
they wouldn't have stopped Clemson.
Right. That would have been that would have been a hell of a shootout watching that game. Cam versus Joe Burrow. That would have been like one of those crazy 48-55 games, if you ask me.
Uzi, I will put you out for this one.
I actually got unfriended by a lady on Facebook because of arguing about Sean White when Gus kicked him off the team. When Gus kicked him off the team, she was arguing that how does this help the young man to kick him off the team? And I was trying to explain that it's a life lesson because football is not life. And he's teaching him the lesson that he needs to grow up.
Right.
But keeping on the team actually is enabling whatever behavior they're seeing internally. Sean White was a head case in a long list of head cases that we've seen in the last 8 years. Right. The only guys that weren't brought that right mentality in with them and were successful.
Right.
Jarrett Stidham, Nick Marshall, Cam Newton. Yeah. That's all we've seen. So what we're doing now at quarterback, I stressing back. I know we're getting pretty close to ending here, but we talk development, and we're bringing you guys more segments to go even deeper into that idea of development and what you see. Everybody we've interviewed so far, I'm always shocked that they're not coaching at the college level. Chris Todd would make a great quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Devin Aroma-Shadu, again, would make an amazing, that we have not reached out to him to say, hey, come coach receivers, is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Courtney Taylor, these guys are good. Jarris McIntyre is a high school head football coach now at his alma mater, Tampa Catholic. But if you look at all the good players that have come out of there, insane. And I think that all I hope to see going into the spring, and we'll continue to talk about it in our other segments, is that we continue to develop in a way that produces more of these moments that we've seen, the better moments in Auburn history over the last 10 years, more consistently. You develop more consistently, you evaluate more consistently, and you will produce more consistently. And I do believe that. Bobo Georgia fans are split on Bobo as a play caller. Like, some of them, the South Carolina people too, they're just like, good riddance. Like, we didn't, and I just think with the type of talent that we've been getting, if Friend can do something with this O-line this offseason, Bobo's going to have a lot of fun calling plays in this offense. If he fix the O-line and find a quarterback, and I think Bobo's going to go to town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I really do. So nobody expects us to do much next year. I saw an article that said something about Bo being a sleeper for something next year, or Auburn being a surprise team in 2022. And I'm not ready to go there. I do think that they can win now, but there's a lot of things that have to go right. Yeah. And I'm not sure.
I want to see a competent team from top to bottom. You know what I mean? That may not reflect in more wins or a 10-win season this year, but I want to see a team that is competing. And you're not going to see a team like we watched the Georgia game last year, and you could tell that Kirby Smart called off the dogs after halftime.
Yeah,
because he knew Auburn was no threat to come back in the second half.
Right.
So I want to see a team that Kirby Smart is, even if he beats Auburn, we have him sweating well into the fourth quarter. Like, we're competing and we're pushing these top level programs week in and week out. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I want to see. And I think once we begin to do that, then we can talk about how we can take the next step and actually start putting some more W's on our record and getting into the national conversation in terms of a playoff team.
Right. Lloyd Daniel, I don't know if I've seen you comment before, but welcome to the War Report. This comment about head cases, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I get beat over the head.
Interesting. That's interesting. That's a good comment.
I think that we currently have one that he created. We're stuck with one that he created. He left us one on his way out the door.
Yeah.
But the history there just can't be ignored. It really just can't be ignored, right? Like the head cases that he created at quarterback. I don't know how you can be a Gus and a Bo apologist at the same time. If you like Bo, you should hate Gus in my book.
Right. Right.
Seeing what he's done with quarterbacks over the years. So it's just time to move on from that. Now, I'll tell you, one thing that gets thrown at me quite a bit is that why, people think that I'm putting a lot of pressure on Demetrius Davis. That's a lot of pressure for a freshman. And I think that I would challenge everybody that is a lot of pressure on a freshman under the old staff. The idea that a freshman can't come in and start in our league is a very Gus kind of mindset. I think that under a staff that knows what they're doing in terms of talent evaluation and development, a freshman can come in and be successful. They can manage him. And the way to do it is you fix everything around him. A freshman needs a solid O-line, right? Allow him to do the things that he does well within the framework of the offense. Play call to help him out. Give him easy throws. To teach him where his check downs are. We got to be more than just a one read offense. We just do.
And this is Ike's comment. Ike's comment. Of course, Ike was having some issues with his internet, but he doesn't feel that it's fair given the circumstances around those players to call them head cases.
Maybe not for some of them, but some of them I just do. I just think I'm not blaming them because I am in the group that thinks that we created an environment that fostered that. Yeah, I don't know how that can really be argued, right? Just look at the history. The environment was not conducive to freshman quarterbacks doing well in our system. We have 8 years of sample size to say that it didn't. Yeah. So, JG came on and said, I don't think it can ever be said of Gus that he developed quarterbacks very well. When we have the benefit of hindsight, we can look back and say that it didn't work. So, they're going to have to do that better moving forward. That's why I'm giving Demetrius a shot here this spring. Guys like Demetrius, throwing the ball to kids like Malcolm Johnson are what I'm looking forward to seeing in this new offense. And, even if it is Bo, because if he wins the job, I will be rooting for him. And I don't think that he'll win the job because of his seniority under Bobo and Harsin. I don't. I really do believe they'll be reevaluating everything, and they're going to play the best guy. Yeah. I really do. I hope so. And if we go out, I'll be less optimistic if they send him out there game one and he looks like boo-boo. Right? And I would challenge everybody to watch the games a little bit more critically than you have been watching them. So if you watch our show, when you're watching games now, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but it's more than just about completing a pass or having positive yardage on the play. If you are not doing it in a way where your mechanics are good and your fundamentals are good so that you can consistently produce that result, eventually you're going to run up against a better team and it's all going to fall to crap.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to see a lot of fake success that will fall apart against better teams. So, we should, if it's good, you should crush like the lesser competition. And that's something that we've been saying. Like, it just seems like sometimes Auburn plays down to the competition. We clearly have more talent. We go out there and we perform like we're playing lesser talent rather than performing like we are the dominant talent. Maybe they can keep their foot on the gas and go for the throat here on some of these teams. They have a good opportunity starting the season. We don't have an SEC game until October.
Right.
Yep. You got road test at Penn State, hit LSU, and man, let's see what we got.
Time will tell, man. Time will definitely tell. And again, spring is 2 weeks away. We got 2 more weeks, guys. So we're gonna have a lot to talk about soon. Mike, go ahead and let's do the necessary and let people know about memberships and merch and all this good stuff.
Hey, listen, man, we want your email addresses. Give them to us, right? If you go to the About section, you can get a discount in the merch store. If you just register for our email list, we want to get some information to you guys as we continue to grow and our platform grows. We just want to be able to communicate with you. We will not spam you with unnecessary emails, so you don't have to worry about that. Ain't nobody got time to spam you guys with emails. Become an insider. Right. We have launched memberships and you guys are signing up. You can see that the insiders are designated with a special mark by their name in the chat. We are adding content and we are bringing you guys more access. And eventually that will only be exclusive to insiders, as that list grows. So we want everybody to be able to get a taste and a sample of what that content's going to be like. But eventually it will be exclusive. And then lastly, we are starting a social media campaign to get these two guys to lift off for charity. Strength, conditioning, development, baby. Let's go. Right. So I'm Coach Harsin. I really do believe that he's the OG Diesel. I think that Brian was Coach Mason. I think he was the only one that was.
I'm
Coach
the only
Mason.
point, wasn't it? Yeah.
He was Coach Mason,
yeah.
Right? And so we are going to start. We're going to start this fundraising. We're going to raise money for a good cause, and we're going to try to get the attention of the university. We have reached out to a lot of people connected and around the program right now to help us get these guys' attention, so that we can start a new era of Auburn football off right. Right. Help your community be involved as our platform grows. So does our social responsibility. So we want to make sure that we're using our platform to do something good in the world. And this is going to be one of them. So I can only imagine the scene around the coaches in the weight room while they're doing we did, I saw somebody comment the 225 test. I don't know how Diesel. I just figured for rep's sake we would make it 185 because that's what they do coming out of high school, right? Like, and to see how many. I think Harsin honestly might be able to put up about 35 on 185, right? Mason might get close. I just think it would be interesting to watch and see the players kind of rally around their coaches.
It's definitely going to be fun. It's definitely going to be fun for sure. For sure.
So.
Yeah, so guys, listen, thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, I don't know what you're doing if you haven't, but please, by all means, like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Guys, hit our socials. You can find us at The War Report on Twitter and IG. We are TW Report at TikTok. Guys, we're about to sign off, but as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
War Eagle.